Are we live?
We are. We're live.
Live in 3, 2.
Camera 1, go. All right,
Wow.
This is September 5.
Yeah. Would you like to give the synopsis?
Yeah, so we just saw a pre-screening of September 5, which is a story about the 1972 Munich Olympic Games and the hostage situation and the camera crew that follows the whole hostage negotiation and the end, how they covered it and why they did what they did. It was CBS or was it ABC? It was ABC.
Mm-hmm. ABC Sports.
ABC Sports that was covering it and had their own control room, had their own studio in the Olympic Village. So they were 300 feet from where the hostage situation and negotiations were taking place. And they chose to cover the story instead of the news team, which was back in New York.
Correct.
Is that a pretty good summation?
That was great. I just wanted you to because I feel like, yeah, you could explain it better. But yeah, crazy movie about something, a real life event, but also getting the lens of what it was like to be in that control room, which I feel like you have a lot of insight on.
Yeah. I want to hear your take on it because for context, I work in master control operations. And so I am listening to a control room like that. It's not exactly the same environment. It's 1972 that this takes place. So a lot of it's different. There was some similarities, but I tried to lean over and explain anything that I was like, that might not be understood or maybe that doesn't come across, but I don't know. What did you think of it? It's an intense movie. It's hard because it's real, but I thought it was fascinating. What did you think of it?
It definitely is a heavy movie knowing this is a real life event that happened and ended tragically, but I tried to look at it as like what's incredible is what the story tells about the team and the attention to detail and just how amazing that team pulled together to pull off something that nobody would expect a sports control room to do. So as someone who does not work in that field but is married to you, I feel like I think my appreciation was already heightened. Like I think a lot of people are going to come out of this movie thinking, wow, I've never noticed how much attention to detail there is, how much goes into it. And I think that's the realization I had once you got into your job and I learned more about, oh, yeah, there's somebody behind that.
Right.
We're not, yes, like we're in an advanced digital age, but even though that was in the 70s and we're in 2025, there's still a lot of thought and effort and like intense action behind what's being broadcasted. It's not just cool. It plays on its own. No worries. It's on autopilot. So I already appreciate it, but then seeing it, I was just so amazed knowing these are people who mostly focus on sports and they had to cover something, one, so suspenseful, but also even if this was like a regular news team, this would still be new to them because it was the first time an event like this was being broadcasted live. So on top of it, the fact that it's a sports crew is, I'm sure a lot of people underestimated it, but yeah, it made me appreciate people in that industry back then and now.
The creativity that like a lot of those people had to utilize is intense. Like the ability for the camera crew to just be like, all right, if we can't get the shot, wheel the camera out the door.
There's like no excuses. You just figure it out.
You just got to figure it out. And I think too, like, it's amazing that they just saw an opportunity in that, like, hey, we're outside the door of what's going on.
Yeah, we're here.
And so we might as well cover it. I was when we after the movie, we watched those interviews with some of the directors and actors, and the real guy, Jeffrey Mason, who like was the producer on the show. I was thinking to myself, like, he was a sports journalist, but this was a sports story.
True.
Like, it was in the Olympic Village. It's just that now it had gigantic implications for not only global politics, but like the TV industry.
Right.
And yeah, it was a really cool movie. I thought those three main characters, the three guys, was like, it was awesome to witness their conversations about what the point of their jobs is. Like, what are we actually doing here? Are we following the story wherever it goes? Do we have a moral responsibility to understand it and play into what people are watching and filter that? Do we have a moral responsibility to the network to capture a story if it's available?
Yeah.
It's very cool. And the way that the movie shows it too, you feel like it's a news, like a documentary almost. I mean, it's so real. Everything is
the
colorized,
footage from the actual day.
The cutting between the like real footage and the filmed grainy, granular kind of 70s vibe that immerses you into that world.
Right. I love too that we like stayed in the control room. You know, like the shots we saw of what was happening was what they saw. It was everything on film. It wasn't, okay, now we're filming in a new location and we're jumping perspectives. It was you stayed there. And even though that might seem kind of lame or like we're just going to stay in this tiny room for this movie, you can feel the energy of how intense this was. And I just felt like the movie like zoomed by. Like there wasn't a moment where it just felt like, this is boring. Like we keep getting shots of the control room. Like it was high energy the whole time.
The way that like information comes in is really intense. You know, they get these like fax messages, but it's also like they're on the radio. And so you're right. It doesn't feel like a lot of time goes by. It feels like it's exhausting, but it doesn't. The movie doesn't seem too long. Even though they're on the air, quote unquote, for 22 hours or however long it was. Yeah.
I have a question, and maybe this is kind of jumping to the end.
Go for it.
My question is specific to you and about the end of the movie. So as someone who works in this field, and you've worked events where you guys have had to broadcast something really intense, unexpected, and I noticed at the end of the movie, this conversation between the girl from Germany, she doesn't see everyone die, but she's pretty dang close and is seeing all that go down to help get that footage. And then you have the guy who's in the control room all day. Like both of them have just like witnessed and learned a lot of tragedy from that day. And that's really heavy. And I just noticed the dialogue at the end is very, not too emotional. It's like, we're at work. We're going to see each other tomorrow. What do you say? It's not, to me, as someone who's not in that field, to me, it was realistic of them just being like, hey, like, I'm sorry you had to see that. Yeah, it was disappointing.
Now we're moving
See you tomorrow. Yeah, like they don't dwell on it too much, get it too emotional. Do you feel like that was realistic dialogue following everything that happened?
Well, it's hard to say only because, one, at my job, we don't really talk about like what's going on. It's more of like you're just talking about work and like, oh, that's crazy. But like for that girl, things are so personal to her because she's a German citizen. She's having to deal with like the overarching global narrative of Germany's kind of reconfiguring of their image post World War II. And I don't know, there's like a national, there's a national tie there. Nobody in my work really talks like that.
So even when something hard has been broadcasted when you're at work, it's not something on that personal of a level.
No,
not
I don't
that
think
traumatic.
we've ever had something like that. I will say the way that the directors talk and the producers, like Jeffrey talks to the other guy, they do talk to their producers in like shorthand and a lot of the similar things. It's all digital and it's all through like an interface now, but they are all stressed out all the time.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of assholes a little bit. Like just in the sense of like they're under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And
there's no time to be polite.
They're just going to say what's going on in the moment.
So then did you feel like for most of the movie, the dialogue was pretty realistic being in that room? And again, I know it's from a different time, but
yeah, what's interesting is when I'm at work, I only hear one side of that conversation. I only hear Jeffrey calling out, all right, like this, take camera one, ready, Charlie, take Charlie, 12 seconds left in the package. Have the anchors do this or have,
so you're hearing his voice.
I'm hearing his voice, but then he'll ask a question like, hey, do you want to cut this? Do you want me to show this live shot instead? And I'll hear them ask questions and not hear the answer, and I'll just see it on air. What made me laugh was that I'm in master control operations and I am miles away like they were. So like sometimes like if they were in like a New York control room, they might be just talking to the guy next to him. But since we're here and we're talking to New York people, they're telling us millions of miles away, go to commercial break. And it's a lot quicker than what they do in the movie. In the movie, he walks away from the thing, comes back and goes, all right, go to like break.
Yeah. And
I was like, what are they seeing right now? At my job when we're talking on headsets, it's ready to try and roll your brake, and I have to click it then. Like within seconds. And any sort of like when they cut the live cams and it just goes to black, I was like, I'd be fired right now if that was
when they have just the logo up for a while.
So, but those are real things. Like people, they play like a bump shot or they play a like logo fly. He said fly the text, and I was like, oh, I've heard them call that logo fly. And they're calling out all these codes and different visual graphics and different sources. Yeah. That's the other thing is like, you have so many sources within broadcasts that you're taking live to air. So we are like the master control over all of the source that's what's going out. But then the directors in the midst of that chaos is going, all right, I want this source. I want, the source with the anchor on it. I want this tape that, we have, interview, whatever it may be. So it's all those decisions are happening so fast. It does make sense that a sports team would be able to cover it because like in a production like that, like football, you don't know where the ball's going to be thrown. In basketball, you don't know who's going to like win the tip. So you just have to follow exactly where it goes. And that's like what they're used to. And then when it gets out of hand and like their coverage of it starts influencing the story, then they're kind of out of their depth and they got to go on the fly. Yeah.
I think too, obviously this was in 1972, so it's different, but thinking of all the attention to detail, that was really beautiful to me. And obviously some of these things you guys don't do anymore. Like I remember them showing us the girl who's creating those letterboard captions that are gonna like overlay over the footage. Right. That doesn't happen anymore. But I'm just watching her and I'm thinking she needs to work so fast. It's like with her hands to get these to like create these captions. You don't just type it and blast it out. Like this was all yeah, it wasn't that simple. And so just thinking about her job, even I loved when they kind of took their time to show them developing the photos and enlarging them.
That gave me the most stress. I was like, if I had to be the guy to develop that and cut it and then get it ready to be on air.
Like in how long?
It just, you just got to know you just have to do that so much. And you have to know how to develop film and how to cut it. And you have to make the decision on what's worth seeing so fast. You just have to be like, all right, watch that once. I want it from here to here. And it's on air.
Yeah.
You know, versus like now, like there's EVS controllers. There's you can just record something on your phone and cut it in a matter of seconds. You know, you have to do all of that decision making in the process of developing an entire film roll. It's
even the beginning when they were, it was like a regular work day and broadcasting the Olympics, even those quick moments of actually, I want that shot in it. No, I want that one where it's zoomed in on this Olympian's face. You know, everything is so quick. Like you can't sit and bicker about it. You just got to figure it out and do it instantly. So again, like I think what's so great about this movie is not the tragedy itself was awful, but to see the way these people came together and were able to tell the story so impressively. It was really cool. Made me appreciate people in this industry because it's hard.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see like them realizing that they are influencing the story. I don't know about you. That was the most stressful part to me.
Yeah.
Was when they realized like, are the terrorists watching this happen?
Right.
I thought, and then the police coming in.
I didn't know a lot about how this went down in real life. So I was kind of waiting I was just assuming one of their crew members was going to get killed. I thought so bracing too. Myself for that.
I didn't know enough about it. Like I knew the general idea of what happens, but I don't know. I didn't know specifics on who was reporting and who all died. And so when they send that guy out to be like a fake Olympian and to get footage and report back, I was like, oh, he's dead.
Loved him. He was one of my favorites.
Yeah, he was awesome.
They, for context, there's a guy who works in the control room. I don't know what his job is.
I assume that most of those guys were just like crew members or assistants. Like that guy they asked that who's like, we need a camera guy at the beginning. Can you hold a camera? And he's like, have you held a camera before? And he's like, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of those guys are like, it's like the equivalent of like an intern or an assistant. Yeah. They're not usually in that. We just need you to. They're making your photocopies and bringing you coffee.
Yeah. Oh, there was a detail that I loved. And I was like, okay, I don't know if the director was trying to say something about women. But like, I was here for it. It was the part where, so our character who was the translator, was it Marjorie or Margaret? They said her name kind of fast, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, or I think it might have been Marion. Mary, yeah.
I'm going to call her March. We're going to be buds now. So I'm going to call her March. She was great. She did so much in this movie. And they have her translating like constantly so that they can figure out what the heck is going on, where's the movement. And at some point, some guy who works there sends her out to get them coffee while they're all collaborating. And she doesn't fight him back on it. She's like, okay, leaves the room to get the coffees. And then they're playing this radio or this feed, and it's all German. And the guy's just looking at him like, you sent away the one person here who can translate this for us.
Yeah, that was cool.
And then the next time we see them, he's that guy who sent her out is bringing her coffee while she's at work. And so I don't know if that was supposed to be this like nod or wink, but I just remember the minute he sent her out, I was like, he's sending away someone who can do something they can't. And so I just thought that was really cool. And I forgot, like, this took place in 1972. Like, this isn't
right
2025. And so just watching that, that was probably so natural for them. Like, oh, like, we can figure this out. Have the girl go get coffee. And it's like, no. Like, she actually has some gifts and talents that you don't. we need her on this. And so I loved that little detail. I have no idea if that was real dialogue from the day, but I thought that was a cool element.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it is. It shows like how sensitive all these decisions were. Nothing else really mattered other than like, what is the relevant information here and the relevant sources.
And she was the main one getting it to them.
Yeah, you provided the most utility in being like, hey, I need you to translate this. Not only that, like, it like doesn't matter if she's a woman. There's also like a cultural boundary that like they don't care. Like, hey, like, and I think that like when you were talking about the ending scene with her, I think that's what was so fascinating about the ending. And I don't really, like, it's not a good ending. It's just like
I mean, how do you end something like that?
Of like, hey, I know that this was sensitive to you, and I know that this was a long day, and it was hard for you. I'm also like, I think he also is kind of apologizing. I'm sorry I sent you out, and you could have died. You know, like,
or she could have watched this happen with her own eyes,
and this tragedy occur on her homeland. He wasn't thinking about that either. You know, he was just thinking like, I need a crew out there.
He was just doing what they had to do to get everything.
He just like sent them. And what I thought was cool is at one point he says like, I'll go out back there. I'll go out there. Right. Like he was willing to risk his own life. He just wasn't thinking about that. And that's like when we were watching those interviews after the movie, that blew me away too. And like he said, like after 22 hours of being live on the air, that's when you think about like the decisions that you're making. Otherwise you're just making them. Like you're not overthinking things, and you're just calling out. You just have to
do something.
What your instincts go with. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, once we knew, first of all, again, I did not know how this event went down in real life. So I truly didn't know how it was going to end as far as the hostage situation. But as soon as they're saying, like, we need to confirm if they've been freed. No, we confirmed they're freed. The tone did not feel right. The tone felt so off. And I didn't know.
You didn't know that they were like,
I did not. I did not know how it all went down. And I was like, first of all, this just a reality check that seems too good to be true. Like, this was so intense. And now all of a sudden they were freed or they escaped. And I don't know, maybe there's something about the way they did it cinematically too. It felt like it was still dark. There wasn't like this music change. I feel like sometimes in movies when there's this build up to good news, like there's this change in the music. There wasn't that. Like it was too like, oh, okay. Like I think we got good news.
Simple.
Yeah, seemed too simple. And so I was just bracing myself for what is about to go down because this movie is not over yet. So once we found out, no, they were wrong. In fact, all of them died. I was just thinking to myself, how do you end a movie like this? Like, it's not a happy ending.
Right.
And I think the ending was it was really realistic. Like, if you have a day like that where tragedy happens, something traumatic happens, like, you can't end the day fixing everything. Like, you just have to feel it and you move on. And so the way it ended, I have no critiques because what can you do at the end of 22 hours like that?
Yeah.
There's not necessarily a resolution. You just keep on keeping on.
Well, yeah, the fact that it's like a historical event, it makes it tough, I think, on the writers to like you don't want to show a happy ending to the story.
Right.
You want to show the ending to these characters and their experience.
Yeah.
And the ending of their experience was that they had a horrible day at work that caused them a lot of personal anguish, and then they went home, and that's it. Yeah. When I was watching that part, I was like questioning my understanding of that historical event. I didn't know much about the Olympic hostage situation, but I knew that I thought I knew they all died, and I was like, oh, like
They changed the ending.
Well, I was like, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe the two people who died in the hotel or in the, in like the rooms.
So you knew that there were some that died in the hotel.
Yeah, I thought that they all died.
Oh.
Like, that's what I thought. I thought it was like, and for some reason I had read 9. In my head there was like 9 hostages, but then I looked it up later. I think there's like 11.
I think it was 2 died at the hotel, and then 9.
And so I was like thinking, did I get this wrong? Did I misunderstand this the whole time? But then I knew as soon as like he kind of had that, when Jeffrey has that dilemma of like, this isn't confirmed, but I was told this. Do I go with it? And like, it just took him so long to think about it. I was like,
I was so mad.
I was like, he's gonna do this and it's gonna be wrong. And then I was like, wow, they're like really. I was like, maybe they're gonna end the movie with them all realizing that they were dead, and then it was just gonna be like roll credits. And I was like, whoa,
that would have been. Oy.
But then, like, you know, they're having that drink in the office, and he runs back in. I was like, yeah, this is complicated. That was like, yeah, probably the most stressful part for me. I mean, the whole movie is, but
yeah.
My favorite line though is when he's like, before any of it happens, they're like setting up shots, and he's like, camera 2, can you push in? I need to see the whole balcony. And the guy goes, you hear the camera op over the headset go, all right, Kubrick, like Stanley Kubrick.
Oh,
yeah. It was very quick, but he just kind of smiles, and I was like, yeah, that is exactly how I hear directors, especially on like the Weather Channel or the News Channel, talking to the camera ops or talking to like, hey, push in. I need this. Like, I need less headroom on this person, or I need to see more of their background or whatever, or I need this person to sit up. They're constantly yelling at like the camera ops, and I was like, yeah, if that guy if I could hear that guy talk back to the director when I'm at work, it would be nothing but some snarky comments like that.
Yeah, I didn't catch on to that.
Yeah. But yeah, those were the two that stood out. I mean, there's a lot that there's a lot of like, just really, there was a lot of moments in this movie that stay with you that you're like, oof.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would respond to that.
Yeah, even just hearing the conversations they had with people who were kind of doubting they'd be able to pull this off. You know, you can't use that term because if you use that term, this is what that's defined as. And just every little detail mattered.
It makes me think of like what the news cycle and what mass communication was like long before television or radio. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when something happened in Europe or in Asia or wherever, like somewhere outside of, you know, where you are in the world, it would take days, months to find out. I mean, you think about like the Civil War and how battles were still taking place long after the South had, signed their defeat, but battles were still taking place because communication hadn't traveled that far yet, or people just like kind of chose to keep going, and then people end up dying. Or like the Revolutionary War. You don't hear that, oh, like the British have been defeated. You keep on fighting, and then you end up, you know what I mean? Like, it takes a long time for that to happen. And then like with the invention of the newspaper and like telegrams and Morse code and like the ability to communicate like that, it's like finite messages are able to be translated quickly. And like there's heaviness in that. Like when you get when you get a telegram that's like, hey, this person died. It's like, whoa, I can't, Like I'm not there, but I know that, and the information still weighs on me as if I'm experiencing it firsthand. Then this movie is like a step forward in that, you know, like everybody's going to see somebody die the moment that it happens, you know, and like how much that weighs on the people doing that. And it was just a sports crew. It was people. It was a dude who was like producing golf. That was like a funny detail at the beginning. Like all he does is golf and like women's volleyball or something like that.
They never end up airing anybody being killed, right?
I don't think so. No. Okay. I mean, they aired them. That scene where he's holding them out over the window.
That was crazy. I wasn't sure how that was going to go.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about the actual history of it, but yeah. I feel like there was something else.
Oh. Can you tell me about the part you thought was unrealistic?
What do you mean? What?
With the mic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
I was like, I'm so glad I'm watching this movie with you.
Well, maybe it is possible. I don't know enough about 1970s phone lines, but she calls him on like a road, like a landline. And then they're like, patch that into my internal speaker. Or basically they patched the landline that she was calling in from into the director's speaker, which he's using to communicate.
Like the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, like the walkie-talkie. And then that's going out live on broadcast. I was like, they did it. And maybe it's just like a timing thing. I was like, that happened so fast. And there's no way. Like, it would basically be like my line. Like when I'm in the chair, I'm just in like an office room in front of a computer. It would be like taking the computer's mic live on broadcast. And I'm like, not only is that not going to happen. I mean, now it's not going to happen because they are so concerned with what goes on air, but like they also like technically you can't bring that comm line into like this. You can't use it as an input, you know?
Yeah. I had some moments too where they would be like, we're going from this to this, and now play the footage that we got earlier, and now play this, and here's this caption we have done. And there was a part of me for a second that was like, how did they get all of this material so fast? But then I forget we're watching a movie that's less than 2 hours about a 22-hour broadcast. And so there were some moments where I was like, there is no way they got all of that. And this was almost a day, you know?
Yeah.
Still impressive how quick they got, but not unrealistic really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel stressed watching it? Did you feel like kind of like, whoo, like I'd love to be in like, I don't know. Never mind.
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, like, no, I didn't. I felt stressed for them. I also was thinking like, man, we have this process streamlined now. The technical process streamlined. Like, there still is like what he's looking at there, like with all these monitors with camera A, camera B, tape package A, tape package B. They still have that, but it's all digital now. So it's just like a multi-view thing that you can pull up.
So you wouldn't want to do this in the 70s? You don't want to use a rotary phone?
I tell you what, they should pay the guy who is like in charge of fixing that, like the engineer who they like fall on to, like, at the beginning when it goes to black, like before any of this happens, and the guy's
Oh,
like
I
swapping out
remember.
chords, and then the French guy's like, I need to get chords, but he won't give it a cable for a Frenchman. Do you remember that part at the very beginning?
Yes, I do.
That guy in this movie, he's German, and he's kind of aloof and sort of bitter, but that guy, that role in the 70s should be paid a lot of money, because I don't know how to fix any of that.
Oh, that was the other thing I thought they did well with this movie, was they set the tone early on of how tense these like cultural differences still were.
Yeah.
Like, this hostage situation wasn't out of thin air and, oh, we've never had any conflict like this. Like, you can tell there's already tension, even though it's not right after World War II. It's still fresh. There's a lot of rebuilding they're trying to do. And so I thought they did a good job of setting that tone of, you know, where the World War II is over, but this is still weird to navigate. This is still really hard and sensitive, and there's still healing and racial tension. And so I thought they did a good job of showing that, so that this situation wasn't, well, that was just random. You know, it was hard.
So it doesn't make you want to work in TV, huh?
It for me, you know those movies that like romanticize like writing or romanticize sports journalism, all those. That's how I felt about this one. Like, oh wow, like these people are telling these stories in a really beautiful, intense, but noble way. So to me, it didn't make me look at it like I never want to work in that industry. It did make me think that looks really hard. That looks really challenging. This does not look easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did it make you feel about your job?
Well,
I know it's different, but being in that field.
Yeah, I don't have to make those decisions. I'm just told what to do technically and what to do like with the actual hardware. So I'm listening to some of those decisions being made, but I am in no way like a part of it. Like, I'm no way taking part in it. It makes me feel disheartened just about the news cycle in general. Like, doesn't really matter what station or what kind of coverage. Like, we live in a streamlined world where when something happens, your phone rings immediately. Well, it'll tell you. And that that has a serious consequence on everybody's mental health. So my job in particular, it would still exist outside of that. It's just that I'm a little bit more attuned to it, and at least I get paid to at least I get paid to be aware. You know, it's part of my paycheck. It's not I don't have to watch the news to be updated. You know?
So, can we talk about ratings? Did you have any other thoughts, questions?
No, I think so. One of my other favorite lines was when he comes in wearing the suit, and he's like, at the very, very beginning, Jeffrey comes in wearing the suit, and the producer asks, do you have a date? And he's like, yeah, I just got off. I'll tell your mother says hello, by the way, or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, this
is just a bunch of dudes.
This is just
working weird shifts.
Just the bros at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good setup.
Yeah. Wasn't too heavy on the comedy, but there was some wit there.
No, there was, yeah. What did you think of the guy playing somebody that he knows and exists?
Huh?
The main character, Jeffrey, the director, and how
yes,
that guy legitimately is walking the earth, and he met with him and talking, because in some of the interviews we listened to, the one guy in particular, Boone, I think his name is, or whatever, the producer, the head over the studio, not like the moral compass guy, the guy who is like making the calls and like talking to CBS. The guy who played that said, like, I don't want to really know that guy or like really take
research
a lot of I don't want to do a lot of research or take a lot of inspiration from him, because I feel like
that guy wasn't alive.
Right, but like you could meet his family. You could look up interviews or learn more about that guy's life somehow. He died in 2002. Okay. So like there's got to be some sort of source material that you could take from him if he had a journal or if he had kids or people that he worked with, recordings or anything. But he didn't want to, because he felt like if you can serve the story and if I can serve this character well, then I will be serving like the person well.
Yeah, if this is the same actor I'm thinking of, he also, did you hear the interview where he said he just walked around the Olympic?
Yeah.
What's it?
Olympic Village.
Yeah, so it sounds like his main thing was this isn't a documentary. This isn't, I need to retell the history of what happened, give them all the facts. It's more so I need to react the way someone in this position would and feel the things. And so it seemed like he didn't want to focus so much on research because, I mean, this is more about the human experience and empathy. And so I thought that made a lot of sense. I don't think that means, I think if I were in their position, I wouldn't be like, I'm not going to touch any research. I want to be totally surprised on set. I don't think I would do that, but I think I would do what he did, which is not dwell so much on what are all the facts and details, but more so, how do you respond, like being in that place? How do you respond being in those conversations? Yeah. So I thought that was, it was great, because you can study everything about journalism, but they sure as heck weren't prepared for what they were going to feel that day. Yeah, that's not, But it is cool that, oh my gosh, I'm so bad with names. Jeffrey. The one that's alive. Yeah, I think that was really great, especially since that was like our main character in this movie, that he did get to meet him, learn more about what did that feel like? Like everyone is either asleep or at home with their families. I just got here and what do I do? You know, this isn't what I thought today was going to look like. So I think that was great that they were able to connect and give it justice, since so much of it is about him, and, make sure they're, telling the story, giving it its justice, and not being like, here's what they did wrong. It was, here's what they did, here's how it went. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, which is interesting because it seems like the director was very much motivated by, let's get every little detail right to build out this environment. Like he was very focused on what the actors weren't, which is it's his
job. Sense. I think the script writer's job. Yeah. Yes, for sure. That should be well researched. Like,
and for it to be like authentic so that the actors can come in and just purely react and purely play.
Exactly.
With that.
Exactly. I think that's the best way you could set up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if the character you were playing was still alive? Would you want to meet with them?
I would definitely want to meet with them. I think I would want to make sure they feel comfortable, and even just, again, tap more into the emotion. So not so much about, tell me everything you did that day. Who did you speak to? More so, how did it feel with this? Were you thrown off by this? Were you expecting this? So I think I would love to talk to them for the sake of getting to know where they were at emotionally. But again, just react to all the things.
Yeah, like it's interesting. It must be weird
playing somebody who
alive. You can interact with and talk to, because so much of movies are like what motivates the character. Like what is this?
Right.
What is driving this person? And
Can be more creative.
well, I'm sure that when you meet the person that you're playing, you end up being like, what motivates you? It's the same thing that motivates, like, like same. It's a human experience. Like, what motivated me was that it was my job that day and I was on shift. Like I wonder what that conversation was like with him. In that maybe you might not be able to exactly replicate their motive and what is driving them, and so you kind of struggle and you have to figure out how to replicate that in when you are filming, But I was just curious.
Would you meet with them if you were playing someone who's still alive?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would feel like when you said like you weren't you wouldn't be concerned with the details and the minute things. I think I would be. I would want to know, like, at least just like to use that as fuel to get inside that person's world and their perspective that day, to be like, okay, like, were you tired? What kind of car did you drive?
Like this before?
What was running through your head at this point? How long of a walk is it from here to here? Not to replicate that, but to let it inform your
performance, decision
making, and let it perform like your instinct, the things you can't control.
Yeah, I hear that.
But yeah.
So, would you recommend this movie?
I think I would recommend it to people who are fascinated by technology, are fascinated by world events. I think somebody who lived through that would be interested to see that. Like if I was not even close to being alive in 1972, but if I was and I had watched that at home, and then think back on my own experience of seeing it on my television set and then go, okay,
how did that even become possible?
How did somebody millions of miles away, or who was there, how did their decision making affect my mental state that day, and my view of the world? I mean, that's like, because that's what's so wild about this movie, is that it's 900 million people were watching that. And so the decisions that this group of people and this small, like, improving group, like, was making, was informing the minds and informing the views of the worldviews of 900 million people across America and across the world. Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it to those people, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody who's just looking to enjoy like a suspense movie. It's not exactly,
They called it a journalism thriller. I think that's perfect description.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not like a spy thriller like you would expect.
No.
Would you recommend it to people?
I would, because as someone who doesn't deal well with movies that are really intense or graphic, I think this one did a good job of, you understood the weight of it and how tragic it was, but I didn't have to watch them,
get shot.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I was able to understand the story and follow it along, but also it wasn't grotesque, it was more about the story and the storytelling. So
which is like something that they're grappling with in the moment.
And I think because it is based on a true story, if somebody feels like they can, look up what it was about, they can kind of decide from there, like, am I able to watch a movie about the behind the scenes of telling the story. And if,
sure.
and if that's something you can handle, you might really appreciate this movie. And if you're like, this is too sensitive for me, I don't want to watch these people have to go through broadcasting it, then so I think it kind of helps that you can just read up how it ends, and then it's up to you if you want to see the behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I recommend it. It's hard to rate it because it is like based on something so awful that happened.
Would you watch this with subtitles?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yes. I was like, man,
there were a lot of moments.
If I could watch this at home with subtitles on, that would just sort of inform everything.
Yeah, there were people with accents where I was like, man, I know they just said something so important, but I did not catch it, or just quick decisions, quick comments, and so I would love to see it again with subtitles.
Yeah. One of the things that I was just struck by was the ending of the movie when he's like leaving the control room. He turns off all the lights. The camera shot there gets really handheld and kind of shaky. I don't know if you noticed that or
no, I didn't.
That. I thought it was. Maybe I was just overviewing it, but like in the scene where he walks out of the control room and he closes the door and you're still seeing the small light shine on the board with all of the faces of the hostages, and like the Olympians that are like printed and put up on the board. Yeah, it starts to get like really, I thought it starts to get really handheld and like kind of shaky. And then when he's going to his car, it's like the same thing. It's like, it's almost as if the director and the editor and the producers giving a nod to the medium itself. Like, even like you're thinking about like how much these people are affecting the story that's taking place. And like, and then the like, if you're making that movie, it's your job to tell the story of the people telling the story, And so they're kind of saying like, hey, like, even this is what's going on here. It's different, obviously, but the film industry in of itself is informing many, many viewers, and they get to do that on a scale where it's controlled. I mean, if you're a movie director and you're watching this, if you're somebody who shoots on a green screen all day, and then you're watching this movie where they had to tell the story that was happening that they didn't get a choice in, and they had to just use what they had on them to do it, you'd be like, that's a nightmare. So I felt like I just felt like that was intentional, that all of a sudden he was starting to like zoom out on the film itself.
Yeah, I mean, it even almost is like clocking out. Everything had to be so as perfect as it can get, and then all right, lights are out, cameras are off, I'm off the clock, and
Time to
so
go
there's
home.
there's room to be shaky.
I can't remake any of those decisions.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a perfect shot after it's all said and done.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. Any other favorite shots or anything, or moments in the movie? Would you, if you were offered a role in this film, what role would you play, or would you not want to be in it?
If I could do enough like real life research on control rooms, I would love to be the main guy.
Yeah.
Just the fast pacedness of it all. Not that it looks fun, but I think playing a role,
sure.
It's like a little captain.
I liked the Frenchman, the French guy. I would have liked to play him. Yeah. He was cool.
And I just love how much coffee they had to have on set. Coffee and beer, actually.
You leaned in at one point and mentioned coffee. What was?
I said they have coffee in the control room. Aren't you guys not allowed to do that? Because if it spills, it's really expensive stuff.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
I was like, they're not allowed to do that, but also this was intense.
We are. We're not allowed to have open containers.
Well, they had mugs with coffee to the brim.
Yeah.
So that's how desperate they were.
I won't say a name, but I've seen a guy at my work spill coffee on the station, and he freaked out and was really worried. He didn't ruin anything or get anything, like nothing was damaged. But he like got really worried because he thought he did, and yeah, it's a very expensive coffee spill. I didn't say who it was. It was me. No, it wasn't.
Who you said you would play him or someone else?
I would do I think the actress who plays the translator would be really cool too. I mean, you have you have to be a German. You have to speak English with a German accent. Then you have to speak German as well. But just also that's kind of one of the more, probably one of the more free roles where like she plays a part in it, and a huge part in it, but she's also like she's not a two-dimensional character. She represents a lot. So I think she would be cool too. Obviously I wouldn't be able to play her, but
I also love the lady that develops the photos in the dark room.
Yeah, she's sweet.
That was my queen.
Yeah, she'd a homie. I would love to look at what footage was real and what was day of. I mean,
that's what I was thinking too.
All of the footage of Jim, the anchor. I just wonder if that audio is real, if that footage is real. I have no idea. I cannot imagine that they would use the actual footage of the terrorists, right? That would seem insensitive to the subject. But then again,
it looks the same.
I mean, you're replicating it, so I guess I don't know. I wouldn't if it was me producing the movie. I'd be like, let's redo this. Yeah. I don't want I don't want to republicize that moment, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially for for like the families of the hostages. But the other footage of like the rest of the footage of the Olympics, like do you think the racing and the volleyball and the swimming was legit?
I mean, they were so excited about finding this footage, they have to have used a good amount of it.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing that we heard in the interviews was that they didn't know they were going to be able to use some or get access to the real footage of those events until about 2 weeks before. So you have to then change a lot of decisions for production, you know, in just like a 2-week span. Color choices, costuming, like the set design. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to give your rating?
I don't know if we should.
I would give it a. Or do we do it out of 5 or do we do it out of 10?
Let's just do like a category. We're rating it, so it's not like. Yeah, because I feel weird rating it.
What do you mean a category?
Like instead of rating it as a film, like maybe we rate it on its storytelling or the cinematography or something. I don't know. I feel weird being like, this is a great movie. And it's like, well, it was about something awful.
Yeah.
But
well, no.
That's Hollywood, baby.
I mean, Oppenheimer was a real movie too.
You're right.
This is just a dramatic retelling of it as well.
Can I hear your rating first?
Do we do it out of 5 or 10?
5. I think. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear, my rating on this is going to be skewed because it's something I do. It's like if a basketball movie was about, like you watched a movie about basketball and you loved basketball, or a movie about, like for you, it'd be like a movie about dance or about teaching.
I love a low budget film about teaching.
Yeah. So it's going to be higher for me, but I
see
would
what you
give
mean.
it out of 5, like a 4.4.
Nice. Why not 4.5?
Honestly, just because it doesn't have a happy ending,
Yeah.
you know? Like, it is a phenomenal movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just... And it, like... It's not like it wouldn't be better if it did have a happy ending. I just think it is hard to watch at times. Maybe I'll go like 4.6 now that I'm really thinking about it. I thought maybe some of the stuff could be better explained. I felt well equipped to watch it and understand it because I work in that field, but a lot of those terms I was like, I hear that at work, so I don't know where else you would learn that. So
or how another person in the audience would
that's my issue with it. I'll stick with a 4.4.
Perfect.
What about you?
I'm giving it 3.9 because one, I feel like there's certain decisions that I think were perfect for this story, but I wouldn't enjoy rewatching over and over again. So, for example, I love the fact that we stay in the studio for the whole movie. I think that's such a smart decision. It reminds me of the movie we saw about the airplane. What was that?
3500, I think it's called.
Yeah. You know, and not because I do think I might be claustrophobic, but yeah, I think both of those films do that, and I don't love that you're stuck in this small space, but I think it's perfect for intensifying the story and getting you to feel what you would be feeling if you were really there versus just now we're panning to this. Now we're going to see this person's perspective. Yeah. So I loved that decision for this story, but I wouldn't just in general want to watch a movie that takes place in that tight of a space like pretty often, you know, like I'd have to have breaks. I'm trying to think what else. Again, like there was some wit there and again. I love funny movies. So I wouldn't want more comedy in this because it's not a comedic story. So again, it made sense for this story, but doesn't because of that detail. It's not like one of my favorite movies. Sure. So all in all, I think they did a great job telling this story. Thought it was riveting. I thought the way they incorporated the film was gorgeous. I thought the dialogue was great. So, yeah, I'm going to say 3.9.
Okay. Now that you're saying that, I might just push mine down to 4.3.
Okay.
Only because you just made me think of, like, the intro. I remember thinking to myself, this is quick that we're jumping into it, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, it was a lot of exposition in the first, like, 10 minutes. I was like, I don't really feel like I even know this guy, this director, very well, you know?
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, the color scheme was...
It didn't match the era.
Yeah, it wasn't too authentic.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't live in the 70s, but I felt like the color scheme, like... I don't know, just kind of it contributed to a certain like disinterest. Okay. I think that I overcame from like thinking about the world events. You know, like I was like, this is
like if this was about a made up event, you'd probably be a little bit more bored.
Yeah, visually. I was trying like. When there was shots of like the village, I was trying to like view like, wow, like that's a real place. I wonder if they structured it after that, and in the control room. And then like, but if a shot of the office, I'm like, that's not that exciting, you know. And I'm just not gonna get that drawn in. So I'm gonna go with 4.3.